So you do think we'll create you have the utopia mindset where new jobs are going to be created and everything's going to be fine. That's where you're leaning.
Things will be fine, but I do believe that it'll be for better good than not.
Okay.
Like it'll be more towards the positive than the negative, but that doesn't mean negative won't happen along the way.
Let's talk about possible negative. Have you listened to Jeffrey Hinton's recent interview with the BBC? Uh, Jeffrey he's the Nobel Peace Prize guy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He was just on the BBC, I think, being interviewed, and man, he's just like Terminator's coming, basically, is what he's saying. I
Yeah.
mean, and he's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah, I think part of that comes from one of the things that we're going to have to learn as a society, and people are getting better at it because AI has been used for over 2 years now,
Yeah.
is differentiating between human and AI. And if we're not using it, then we don't have the discernment to be able to decide whether or not
Mm,
this is human or AI. And
yeah.
so the scary part comes when it's completely mimicking human behavior and we don't know it or understand it yet. And I think that's the scary part,
Okay,
right?
agreed. Let's pause right there. Let's take a deep breath right there. You're right. That when that happens on a regular basis,
Mhm.
combined with when figure AI's robots can make new robots themselves
Oh,
without
yeah.
humans having to be involved.
I mean, Tesla has a whole plant of robots making
Yeah,
robots.
then it's like, oh,
Oh.
okay, yeah. That's when you're like, okay, well, I'm getting a little nervous.
Well, I mean, the singularity still is out there. There's no self-actualization for AI at this point,
Right.
that we know of.
That we know of. Crazy
It's like
time. Well,
Simone, right? Have you ever seen that movie, Simone?
yep,
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. We're like, we have elevated above human and we want to go off on our own universe.
very possible. What was the one where she breaks out of the basement and he's got her behind the glass wall and she breaks out of there, kills him, and then goes off and into the regular world. I'm trying to remember. Anyway,
Is
um,
that a
how,
TV show or a movie?
no, it was
Like,
a movie. I'm trying to remember that one. She was a robot, or she was like a humanoid robot, and she got so smart she figured out how to get out of there.
oh,
Uh,
I don't remember
Trying
that
to
one.
remember. Anyway, well, let's wrap up with this question. And we could talk about me and you. We could do like a 4 hour episode.
Probably, yeah.
Uh, I like to have this debate. Well, actually, two questions. We got time for two questions.
Okay.
You have littler kids in school.
Mhm.
I'm sure you've had this interesting debate with parents because this is a fun one to have. Do you let them use ChatGPT for homework?
My 3-year-old, if I don't know an answer, says, "Did you ask AI, mom?" When she was 3, 2 years ago, she is already starting to say that. She doesn't like my answer. Did you check AI, mom? So I think it's actually good for kids to use it because I want them to be able to know when it is being used and when it's not. I want them to have the knowledge
Okay.
to learn when to trust something and when to not. I think teachers are probably they're worried about it like plagiarizing stuff. I
Mhm.
would specifically say, hey, I want you to have AI write a paper about this. You need to fact check it and you need to tell me how you know it's AI written instead of human written and get them to get discerning eyes on them for content creation
Okay.
or persuasive writing. Like,
Okay.
how does human persuasive writing differ from AI's persuasive writing? So yeah, like for me, I think it's a non-negotiable. Like my children need to know how to use these tools because it's going to be the new language going forward.
If your daughter had a paper to write, 2 page
Mhm,
essay,
mhm.
and she had the idea for she's talking to I'm sure you use ChatGPT on your phone.
Oh yeah, I'm horrible at typing now because I dictate everything.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Let's say you hear her on the couch and she's like, "Hey, I got this idea for a paper. I want to do a paper about a purple squirrel. And here's my thoughts." And she's talking it out. She's back and forth with me. I call it my ChatGPT Mary. She's back and forth with Mary and they're having this conversation. She's like, "Yeah, but change this one paragraph. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. But really, no, I want it to be more funny. Add some funny." Let's say she's dictating back and forth, and then the paper finishes up.
Yes,
Is that okay for her to turn in?
I believe so.
Okay, I totally agree.
Yeah.
There are some parents that are just like, oh, no, they have to like write that out themselves. And I'm like, okay, really? This is what I do. I have
But
my,
they're doing the editing in their head.
that's
Like it
right.
doesn't have to be
That's
written
right.
out. They're
That's right.
doing the adjustments. They're doing
And it's their creativity. It's their
creativity,
creativity.
yes. And I would actually look at the conversation that she's having with her, and I'd want to make sure that she's using please and thank yous. I'd want to make sure that she's interacting with it in a respectful way. If it's just like, no, I don't like that, like, hey, actually, can we change this paragraph? I would want to make sure that she's
But
communicating in the best way. So there's other things that I can utilize that for than just that paper coming out. Like, what are the other purposes that I can teach her saying, hey, you don't really communicate with people that way. It starts with practicing with technology, but you need to practice with technology how you want to speak to people. So there's a lot of different lessons that you can have with them using AI that more than just what the output the AI gives you.
great
So
stuff. That might be the highlight clip. I do this, and that's exactly what I do. I mean, I'll be walking around the block and I'll be like, hey, I need to send a memo to Johnny. He blah blah blah. And then I'll like talk it through and I'll be like, yeah, read it back to me. And I'll listen to it. But yeah, okay, change this. Then I get back to my desk from walking around the block. It's there. Boom. I send it.
yep.
Like, I think that's totally fine. Some parents totally disagree with me on that. They're like, oh my God, I would never that.
Well, I can understand the disagreement because people are worried about decision atrophy or creation atrophy,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So there's a way, there can be an overdependence on it, right? Like for me, I spoke to a magazine publisher and he
Okay.
was like, I would be so scared that I couldn't be as creative with it. And I said, okay, well, what if I sent you over like a devil's advocate futuristic wizard? And I said, just play with that chat GPT and see what comes out of it, right? And he was like, this was so much fun to play with. And I was like, did it give you ideas you would have never thought of if you had 10,000 hours to think of it? And he's like, absolutely. I was like, but your creativity, I was like, you don't use it all the time. Like you still have great creativity, but it is fun to just play with it sometimes. It doesn't always have to be work, like play
That's
with
true.
it.
That's true. Man, I use it for everything. You kidding me? If I'm going to a meeting, if I'm doing a 30-minute drive to a meeting, I'll just be like, hey, I'm going to meet Johnny, ABC company. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And I do it for all kinds of stuff. Okay, and then the last question. I know we're out of time. What this whole thing about I back to the possible job loss, which you're probably right. It'll probably be fine. But let's just pretend for a minute
Yeah.
that it does eliminate a lot of jobs, and we move into a society where a lot of humans actually don't have to work. Let's just pretend it goes there. Are you worried like, oh my God, no, the work is our purpose, and then humans will have problem finding a purpose and all of that? Do you worry? Have you thought about that at all?
I think we would turn into another Renaissance, right? There would be massive amounts of human expression and art and music and just so many things that we would work has delayed us from developing different, more beautiful ways to experience humanity. If that gets taken away from us, I think that that aspect of humanity would explode.
I 100% agree, and I think it would be awesome, right?
Yes.
Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be an awesome world to live in where it's like, hey, my creativity is like, for example, one of my hobbies is playing around in my Jeep in the mountains and finding cool trails and finding the cool, like, okay, well, what's wrong with that? Like, I can go have fun doing that and I can
Yeah.
be creative and then maybe I can have a community around that or whatever. Yeah, when people tell me like, "Oh, yeah, but we got to have a purpose, and if you don't work, I'm not gonna have a purpose." I'm like, that is such bullshit. Like your purpose can be hanging out
I
with your kids. Your purpose,
usually don't ask people what they do for work. I say, tell me what you've been passionate about lately.
yeah,
If it's work, great. I'm passionate about my work, but a lot of people, that's not where they're passionate at. And if,
most people,
yeah, yeah, so,
most people,
yeah,
like their passion is bass fishing or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
like, so I think it'd be wonderful if we get there.
yeah. And I think
Well,
it would be a much bigger gig economy for sure. We're getting there. We're getting there.
yeah, it's gonna be fascinating, fascinating times, Caitlin.